Hello, World Economic News for Friday. Now, I'm going to do this whole World Economic News from one publication, which is Jeff Gundlach's Double Line Hedge Fund publication, PDF. I'll link to the Business Insider article on this, but if you Google all the information on the first chart up, you'll find the PDF and get the whole lot of it. So here we go. Jeff Gundlach's Double Line View of the World. Now I've just picked out 15 or so of the charts. This is a 70 or 80 page PDF. Right, first, domestic credit market. It's classic, call it debt to GDP, whatever. You can get an idea from it. We start in 1929, where the 185% debt to GDP sort of thing, whatever that is. Anyway, it goes up then to 1932, but that's because GDP is dropping, not because the debt is being increased. So we could almost run across, but to 1951, which is effectively the end of the Great Depression. And then from there on in, it's up and up, stop and start a bit, but on the up and up all the way to 2007-8, where the debt is 345% of GDP, huge quantities of debt. And the question is, can the future support the debts that have been taken on in the past? And the last little line is pointing downwards, and that is very bad news, because the money has to go into the economy to pay off the debts that have been taken on. If the extra money isn't going into the economy, those debts will not be paid. Bottom line. National debt ceiling versus gross federal debt. This is the United States huge trillion number, 14 whatever trillion it is at the moment, the debts, and you just by the shape of the chart, you can't like the look of it. There's projections for out to 2014 heading up to 20 trillion, and you can say, well, this isn't sustainable. Well, it is sustainable. It is sustainable as long as enough money goes into the economy, and the economy as a whole grows to support that sort of number. And that's the problem. But it could be sustainable. Money multiplier, that yesterday I called bunk. Nobody asked me why, and I'm quite happy because it takes quite a lot of explanation to explain why. Different ways of looking at this, the amount of money put into the economy, and you get a certain amount of growth from it. That's one way of, I think, looking at this multiplier thing. I'll read along the bottom because it's vaguely interesting. Money multiplier is the M1 ratio of M1 to the St. Louis adjusted monetary base. All right. M1 represents the total amount of money available in an economy at a particular time. Money is defined as currency in circulation and demand deposits. Hello, Zarathustra. Strong evidence shows that a direct relation between long-term price inflation and money supply growth, etc., etc. Well, that's what it says at the bottom. But the way I look at it, you put so much money into the economy and you get so much growth from it, GDP growth. And coming into this chart, it was you put 1 in, you get 1.8 out. Is it that? Because it circulates around more? I don't know. Anyway, the more you put in now, the 1, you get less. You get 0.8, 0.7 or something. You don't get bang for your buck. You get negative bang for your buck. Anyway, it doesn't look good. Non-farm payroll. This is the Joker chart, just constructed in a slightly different way, and you can recognise it as what it is. That little on the red line, obviously, is our recession now, which keeps going on. That little bump was the census hiring, and it just runs along the bottom when all past recessions have been going upwards by now. Not strictly true, but you can see it's a lot worse now than it's ever been. Corporate profits are about in the middle of where they normally are coming out of recession, and basically because corporations or business can just fire people and make it work. Basically, they can make the profits work by firing people and doing other things, but firing people generally does the job. Shrink to just down to till you can make a profit. US dollar index, going back to about 2006, it's been up, it's been down, it's been up, and it's been down for various reasons. There are people probably that do know what all those various reasons are, but they'd be very boring people. It's basically not going down, it's not going up, it's just going up and down. Gold, undeniably in the same time, has been going up. That's just it. That's what that chart does. And again, why do people want to buy a perfectly, almost totally useless metal for a lot of what we call money? I don't know. But they do. And seem to be increasingly wanting to so do. CRB Commodity Index, it's a large basket of various products, useless metals like gold, useful metals, cotton, pig's bottoms, all that sort of stuff, all in the index. 2008 was world ruinous. It could have been that tripped everything off. Why it went that high, I'm really not sure. And why it went later all that low, I'm not sure either. Except we're humans that made it go up and down, and we're just irrational. And you can see it's clawing its way back up again. There is a genuine supply and demand out there, and people are betting on that real fundamental supply and demand. China CPI, inflation, you can see it's starting to edge up again, being a trouble in China. Rumour has it now that they're starting to get on top of it again, so it might not fly out of control. And you can see on this chart where it actually came from, caused by that great spike in the CRB, in the global commodities. But they do need to get that under control. But people say they have got it under control, but it might have actually started to cause what could be a very big slowdown in China, which could be real big trouble for them and the world. US corporate default rate, you can see back to 1981. It was lots of defaults in 90 and turn of the century and in the height of the last recession. But they're down low again, and what Gundlach is obviously edging towards is this next one, Merrill Lynch corporate spreads, basically how much you get lending money to corporates as opposed to Uncle Sam, and you get a good spread. You get more lending to the corporates, and they're making money and they're not defaulting. So I think the implication is, if this is a presentation and somebody's pointing a laser at it, I'm sure they're saying, lend to the corporates, it's the place to be. Home ownership rate, a slightly different subject now. Going back to 1965, up and down, and then that great hump starting in 1994, great run up. Why? Because politicians wanted it that way. And from 2005 going down again. So politicians can want a lot of things, but fundamentals come in the end and make fundamental things happen. And you can see that last little point down, it's just going down and down. Who knows what's going to happen in the future, but you can see if you wanted high, over 70% home ownership rate, you ain't going to get it. Prospective buyers of new home traffic, United States, obviously, going back to 1980 or so, you can see the way it's fallen off. The chances for the US housing market getting expensive again anytime soon it's just not going to happen. New home sales done as again similar way to the Joker chart. You can see it's just completely different to how it normally is coming out of recessions. This is something completely new and abnormal, and the chances of that turning up, well, you can't tell, but we have ideas as humans that you follow the line. why should it turn up? Only if there's a huge amount of inflation hits the country, and there's absolutely no sign of that at all. No, I don't think there is. 30-year mortgage rate. This is the last one of the ones that I've picked out, because Gundlach is obviously saying, look at that chart, it's gone down, it's going back up again. The thing is, mortgage rates are being held down by the Fed, keeping the Fed funds target rate down. But how long can they keep their Fed funds target rate held down to 0 to 0.25%? The only way is up for those mortgage rates, or the whole economy turns Japanese, as I said a couple of years ago. That is the US turns Japanese and has at least decade of malaise, of sideways nothingness, is the best they could ever have wished for, and it looks like they are settling for that, because they're making no efforts to get out of that problem. And they're not bailing out Main Street. They're not really doing anything about the deficits. They're not doing anything. They're doing what the Japanese did, realised that the problem of too much debt was unsurmountable, and are just letting the air out of the system for as long as it takes. And Japan have been at it for 20 years, and the air still isn't out of the system in Japan, and the air might not come out of the system in the United States of America for the equivalent 20 years. But unfortunately, there are other things happening in the world which will force their hand to either let the air out with a huge gush, or to try and pull the lid in and keep the pressure on, and then the whole thing explodes. But mortgage rates, quite a lot's based on it. If the mortgage rates goes up, the economy isn't strong enough to support it. So, like Japan, the Fed funds rate's got to stay low, low, low. So they can stop quantitative easing, but they will not stop zero interest rate policy. Good weekend. Bye.